Hello, my son Beckett is working the switcher back there. So Beckett, hey, say hi. Can they hear you? Hi. So anyway, today we're working on compact RPE. There goes Pete. Today we're working on a compact RPE. I think I've done a lot of RPEs, the 4-arm RPEs. This is a 2-arm RPE. Some people call it tubular RPE. I tend to call it compact RPE or 2-arm RPE. And so we'll be making that today on an actual 3D printed model. So I have my model here and I have my stuff. So here is the screw that I'm using. It's a Leone 1621 8mm. It is a triangular housing, has a triangular housing. So it's got the threaded screw part, and then it's got the guide post here, and then the arms for it. So there's different designs of these. I tend to like this one. This is called a Stealth, and I like just the way it fits the mouth. So we'll be using that today. Again, this is a Leone A1621 8mm. That is what we're doing today. Yeah, we will get started. Oh, this also has case pans. Sorry, in this case pan we have bands, and these were provided by the doctor. So this is my. I'm glad that they provide the bands. We have already, and I've done this a few weeks ago. Prepped this digitally. I did a whole video on it, and if you're listening to the recording of this, I'll try to put a link to it in the upper card, up in the upper corner over there. And you can see how I digitally ditched this and then printed it. So don't drop these on the floor. Oh God, there we go. Any of y'all that work in an ortho lab or do this kind of stuff for a living know the scariness of dropping one of these and never finding it again. And usually it's one that, you know, you're on your last bend of it. Okay, so let me get my knife. This will work. I don't like this one, but I'm going to trim away some of this right here because the hook on this buccal molar tube is impinging on that. Otherwise, this will just be gums that will, you know, move out of the way. So I'm not too worried about it. I have another. Where's all my tools? I have lost all my tools. It's probably sitting in front of me somewhere on my desk, but I got a little band pusher here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to run a burr around this tooth. Sometimes, and that's one of the bonuses of getting a band from a doctor, that they fit in the mouth. So we know 100% for sure this is going to fit the patient. I have a little bit of a burr here, and the burr, I'm getting a picture, Cade. There we go. I got to turn it on. Why not? There we go. I'm just going to just slenderize this tooth just a bit. Again, they fit these, so we know 100% that this fits the mouth. So all I need to do is make sure it is positioned correctly on the model. There we go. Didn't mean to bend that in, but that actually works out pretty good. Now that my favorite, I said this is my favorite band to get, is one that I know fits the mouth. My favorite, this is probably my second favorite. My first favorite is 3D printed metal bands, which I did do a video on a RPE, and I did a RPE with 3D printed metal bands. So keep a lookout for that one. So we're pretty conservative when we ditch these, and that way, you know, when we fit the bands, we know for sure it's going to fit. If it's a little too big, it'll still fit. But if it's too small, it's not going to fit at all. So there we go. We got these fit on here. There goes Pete again. Likes to be a part of the live stream. Let's relieve some of the gum tissue. There we go. One thing you got to be careful of is the angle of this. You don't want these tilted too much like this and like that. I'm just kind of adjusting these. I don't want them too torqued. Well, sometimes that's just how it is. It has a hard time fitting parallel when you go to snap it in. Dadgum. All right, I'm gonna now take my heatless stone wheel, and I'm going to take off this cleat that's on the inside of here. What this is usually used for is like if the patient needs to wear elastics or something like that. I'm still not in the camera. If the patient needs to wear elastics or something like that, that's what the cleat's there for. Usually the doctors will just bend it down flush against the molar, and then if they need it, they'll just take a scaler like this and pull that cleat out. I'm gonna zoom this in a bit. Okay, held my breath, just letting y'all know. Okay, we're set. We got the bands on there. And now we need the arms. So this doctor wants a compact RPE with arms going to the, what I assume are C's. In my video, most of my videos with RPEs, I tend to use an 036 wire. This is actually a 040 wire. So I like to use a little bit thicker wire. I'm going to round the end of this wire right now. And I like to use a little bit thicker wire because there's no support arm. Again, this is a 2-arm RPE. I don't have an anterior arm coming up right here. So this has to be strong enough to, you know, withstand some torquing and stuff. But I believe once it gets in the mouth, it's pretty stable. Now, there are some labs that they'll notice the arms on this is huge. If I put this down here, you can see how long the arms are on here. Now, that's used, if you want, you can actually bend these up to the molar and then bend it forward using the same arm. Now, I find that a little hard to do. I mean, if you're a lab that does that, good on you. It's a stronger appliance. But I find that I have a hard time getting it to connect to here. It's just a huge wire to try to bend forward. But again, that's the ultimate. This is probably 051 thickness wire. And again, I'm bumping up from 036 to 040. So that should give me plenty enough strength. So I'm going to start on this C, put a little bend right there, get my trusty bird beak pliers that have wax all over. Get off of there. Bend this way, little bend there, go around that 4. Actually, I think all these are baby teeth. So what I would call a CDE 6. So those are primary molars, and they'll fall out eventually, and bicuspids will take their place. One thing that you have to remember when you're bending these, now I'm going to use a not a laser welder, pulse arc welder. I'm going to cut this. All right, so I'm going to cut this just a little short. One thing, what I was talking about before is the pulse arc welder. You have definitely got to get these to touch. So I'm going to wax it. I think it's touching pretty good. So I'm going to wax this down, and I'm just using sticky wax. Now, if I was using a stone model, I probably wouldn't laser weld or pulse arc weld. I would just use classic soldering techniques, but you cannot solder on these 3D printed models. They will catch on fire, and they will smoke and gas you out of your lab. So it's not a good thing. The good thing with the stone is, you know, it absorbs it, and it doesn't deform under heat. This will also deform under heat. Discovered that the hard way too. So I'm starting on the other side. You can see here they've lost the CD and a 4, an adult bicuspid's coming in. So that might be one reason they're starting to. Looks like it's kind of trapped under this E a little bit. So this may be part of this expander, is to expand and make room for these bicuspids to come in, and cuspids. No telling how big these cuspids are. So let me cut this. So I'm not going to worry about touching that 3 with the wire. Usually I try to touch each tooth once so they all get expanded at once. One thing about cutting it short like I did, I kind of lose track of where it's at. Let me unbend that. There we go. All right. Again, I'm not going to worry about touching that 4. It's still erupting. It's trapped underneath that E anyway. So I think I'm ready to laser weld this. So actually I got to sharpen put a sharp point in here. Okay, I'm going to set my settings here. Turn my hat around. Got to get serious. Plus, my hat doesn't fit under this microscope. That is one of the bad things about grinding off a cleat, is sometimes you get a bump. And that's the only thing this thing will let you weld to. There we go. I'm getting some welds. There we go. Okay. Gotta make sure it doesn't move my wire there. Alright, other side. Oh yeah, this is a better bend. I'm not worried about making a full bead across here. I just need it to be stable. I think we got our bead. Pretty good bead. Decently. Just don't want those wires to move. The way we're going to go is I usually weld these arms first, and then I set the RPE screw and then weld the screw arms to the lingual arms. So I don't try to weld the RPE arms to the band. If you've ever tried to weld to a band, it is not fun. You'll blow holes because that wire is just so thick. You got to get it so exact on there. So I usually run the easier to bend wire all the way across the lingual of the band, and then weld that down, and then weld the RPE screw to those lingual arms, which are welded to the band. So we'll do that now. All right, we'll go under the camera here. So I'm going to get my little bit bigger pliers. Again, this is a triangular body. I usually like to put the threads as far deep down into the pallet as possible. Oh, this way. And I like the arms to come off the top. Now, there's different ways of doing this. You can actually put it in there this way. If I tilt this way, you can do it this way and bend the arms up. I've seen it both ways. Now, you'll have to turn it to such a way where they can see this arrow. And, well, that's not going to work. It'll have to go this one. On this one, some of these, depending on the type of stealth you get, some are built for the upper, some are built for the lower. You want the arrow always pointing back so they can activate it in the mouth. So I'm going to bend these arms upwards. So I'm going to take my handy dandy pliers here, and I'm just going to do some initial straight up bends just to get it into the roof of the mouth, just like that. Now, I know there's some missing model here, but that's okay in this case because I actually like to put the screw mesial to the sixes. So that means I need to angle these arms distally. That way it's not too far back where it gags them while it's in their mouth. It's right there where pretty much a forearm RPE would be. All right, just going to keep bending this backwards. And what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to put a little bit of wax there. So I'm just going to get a little piece here. Maybe this base plate pink wax. I'm going to put it in the roof of the mouth. I'm going to get my not Bunsen burner. My little burner. I'm going to melt that wax. And then I'm going to sink this into that pink wax. And this is your chance to make sure, well, if you don't drop it, geez, butterfingers. Once you set it in that wax, that gives you a chance to make sure, it's in alignment with the midline. So there's the midline right there. And you got to make sure it's in the line of the midline. And then when you look at it straight down, you can make sure it's not tilted one way or another. So let's see if I can rotate this in the camera a little bit like that. So now you know it's not tilted. You can while that wax is soft, you can adjust it and then let that wax solidify, and now you have a matrix that you can drop your screw down while you make small adjustments to these big wires on here. And I do like the wires to go right in the middle of those molars right there. Over here, right in the middle of the molars. Oh, I got to distalize that just a bit. So hopefully this is cooled off enough. So there, if you can see in the camera, there's just like a slight little indentation of the screw. And that way you can always set it back in the same spot. You don't start trying to bend it while you have it tilted one direction or another. It helps you. It's an aid in helping you put that. It's not needed. I just like using it. I found that it helps me to bend these a little bit faster and more consistently. I'm going to get my 3-prong. I'm just going to curve this up a bit. You can also look while you're doing this. If you get a gap between your screw and your wax, you know you're hitting too hard. So I went in there and just bent this arm toward the middle just a little bit, and it set back down into the wax. Now this arm's not touching at all, like that. Oh, we got some more ducks out there, don't we? Is that Bobo?
Yeah, Bobo was pecking at the camera.
Was he really? Did you switch to it? Yeah, Bobo. So if you remember, Bobo, I think he's the one in the front. No, is he the one in the water? I can't tell. Anyway, Bobo, he was that little lame duck we had. His feet weren't, wrong camera. His feet weren't formed correctly, but we worked with them. Okay, so I have it. They're touching the arms, not the bands, but the arms. They got to touch pretty good to the arms. So I'm going to go ahead and pre-cut this so that it fits better under my puck welder, and also it saves a little time when you go to trimming. You can see how big those are. Okay, so I put a little bit of sticky wax just to hold it down while I'm messing with it under the puck welder. And we have, I'm gonna bump the juice on this. I'm gonna put my ground on here and just go right, I just touch right between the RPE arm and that lingual arm. There we go. I guess those Bobo and Pippa, the two gray ones, I guess they, oh, they're over there eating. I guess they get to, they use the pool last. They're the youngest. Okay, so I have that welded. And what I like to do is I go ahead and put solder. I don't know, you really would have to spend some time laser welding all this together. I just like the solder. To me, it goes a little bit quicker, and it fills in, it's smoother for the patient, and it, I think makes it just a little bit stronger. So I'm going to relieve some of this wax I have holding the wires. Now this will be the tricky part. Now remember, I can't solder on here. So I'm going to tease this off and then solder off of the model. Now if you have an orthodontist you work for, you know what this is. This is called a band remover. I had this given to me. Sometimes the doctors will retire these, or they find the brand that they don't like, and they will, what is bump the juice? What does that mean?
You said that.
I said that.
Yeah.
I don't remember saying that. I'm gonna bump the juice on this.
Hold on, look at your camera.
Okay, yeah.
Whenever you were doing that.
I said bump the juice?
Yeah.
Okay, I gotta go back and listen to that. I don't remember saying bump the juice. All right, so I'm gonna take these band remover pliers. I'm just gonna easily just tease this off of here. So I just sit here and I'm just gonna easily just tease this off. And the reason for that is you do not want to build. I didn't spend a lot of time welding. Pretty much it just is a glorified tack weld. But it is, pulse arc welding. If you're not careful, you can bend these, you can torque them, and then they won't, and then when you solder it, it won't fit the mouth. But if you ever want to double check, you can just make sure, it sits parallel. You need to have it sit parallel, or else they're going to have a hard time getting it on the patient's model. Now, the 2-arm RPE is a little more forgiving than the 4-arm. It's got a little bit more flexibility to it. So that might be one of the reasons. In my description, I did say this is a little bit more hygienic, a little bit more low profile than the 4-arm RPE. I forgot to round this before. I like to round it beforehand, just in case I ever forget to do it. So now let's go to soldering. So I have if y'all seen what I have my wax in, that's not wax, but like this, I have my wax in these little tin things. I used the same tin thing when I was done with wax on this one, and I filled it up with heat shield. So I usually take a spatula, I'll take my heat shield, and I'll just smush some in here like that. And once you do it once, you don't have to do it very often. You can just keep reusing it over and over again. But I do like this little Ziploc baggie that I keep it in. It's got a little Ziploc because this will dry out if you don't use it for a while. So now I'm going to take some flux, mix up my flux, and I'm going to flux this joint. So this is all part of soldering. So if you've done soldering before, this will be very familiar to you. Nothing new here, except it's not on a model anymore. I have it off of the model because you cannot solder on the model. It'll catch fire. Especially 3D printed models. Stone models, I just do it the old classic way. I don't even bother, like I said before, I don't even bother with laser welding it or pulse arc welding it. So I put solder everywhere that I want that solder to flow, and make sure I don't get it on the inside of the bands because I do not want solder there. But I also have a trick for making sure I don't have that happen. This is where it gets a little messy, but I'm going to push this down into, oh, you can't see that very well, can you? Let me see if I can get a lamp real quick. There we go. That's a little bit better, isn't it? So again, I'm going to push this down until my bands start to touch. Now this stuff's pretty soft, but I still don't like to force it any past that because I don't want the bands to hit and start flaring out on me. Now if y'all have seen my tips and tricks, this is the same heat shield material, but it's in a monojet syringe. I just buy those on Amazon. I'll put a link below to my Amazon page. You can order some from there. And I just fill that up. So I'm just filling up the bands, the inside of the bands with heat shield, and that will prevent, one, it'll protect the band from too much heat, because this heat shield will absorb the heat before the metal does. That's one of the advantages to it. And of course it'll protect all the fragile bands from getting burnt to a crisp during this process. So you just kind of squirt some where you need to protect it, and then you can start soldering. I just use a basic silver solder. I think it's 56% silver, cadmium free solder, and I use my Blazer, good old Blazer torch. And I think I can zoom in just a bit, possibly. You may not be able to see that flame. No, that's worse. So the good thing is these, I don't have to do forearm. So I would do the same thing with a forearm RPE, but this just makes it easier. I'm just gonna flow. And again, you don't need much. You've already welded it. You're just trying to fill in the gaps. Just strengthen it up just a bit. So I'm just bulk heating this, trying to evenly heat all places at once. Now since those wires are closer to the flame than the bands, they're going to get hotter and start turning. When they start turning brown or black, put that solder on there. If they start turning red, that's bad. You don't want the band to turn red. You don't want any of the wires to turn red, because then that makes them break easier in the past or in the future. So there we go. That is soldered. Easy enough. So then I just take my little spatula here. So just gonna take a scrub brush, rinse it off real good. You can now take your heatless wheel, and now you have these little bumps where the wires are kind of poking through the solder, and you're just gonna smooth those off. And you can polish it up even more. I use an old acrylic burr. This actually works pretty good for solder. It doesn't work so well on, the wire part, but you can see it's already kind of shiny. Now, one thing you do need to watch out for is right on the tissue side of the band, right where the wire comes in, you may want to smooth that also. So I have another acrylic burr, but a skinnier one here. You don't want this to impinge the gums. You also don't, you want to make sure the solder gets in there. You don't want a food trap in there, because that would not be good for the patient either. So this is pretty much ready for what we like to pumice. I won't worry about that here, showing that here. We'll just end it like that. But this is ready to go. I'm going to clean this up. Go ahead and remove this pink wax here. Oh, get out of there, pink wax. And then this is good to go. So of course I'll take this off, I'll pumice it, I'll high shine it with some metal polish. Some people do this with burrs and stuff in wheels, but that's pretty much it. That's all there is to it. That was a compact RPE with lingual arms. Thank y'all for watching, and I'll see y'all next week. And until then, well, okay, before I say that, make sure you subscribe, because I go live every Friday around noonish. I try noon, but like today was 1:10. But do the bell icon; it'll send you a notification when I save the stream. So be sure and do that. I think 70-something% of y'all are not YouTube subscribers that watch this, so be sure and subscribe. That'll help me out. And until next time, I'll see y'all next week. And until then, happy bending. Happy Memorial Day and bump the juice all weekend. That's so true. Oh, that's so true. Steve, you're hilarious. So, yeah.